Hi everyone, welcome to We Need a Moon. My name's Tracey and I'm here with Dee.
Hey there.
I'm excited today that we are doing our final episode on our Empath series coming out of lockdown. Dee's got a lovely guide and chat today about lots of tips and tricks and how we're all feeling about coming out of lockdown. I'll hand you over to Dee, who's hopefully going to help us through this. It's quite a tricky and anxious time, isn't it, Dee?
It's a really strange one because you'd think that as the restrictions decreased, we would feel really excited and happy about that. And that's not the case at all. Both of us individually have felt anxious about different things, haven't we, Tracey? Yeah. And when I started doing some research on this, this anxiety of coming out of lockdown, I found that there was so many studies, so many articles written about it in different newspapers and magazines and so forth. And I thought, wow, that it's not just us that are feeling like it. So the main thing I want people to take away from this is that if you are feeling any kind of anxiety about coming out of lockdown, whether because you're worried that it's too soon and we might have another wave, or whether it's because you're worried about doing those social things that we used to do, but that now feel really foreign to us, like sitting in a busy cafe. We used to do that all the time, Tracey. We'd meet for brunch all the time. And the thought of sitting in a busy cafe now, I would have to work my way up to that.
And there's nothing wrong with working your way up to that because your brain, your mind has started to slow down a little. We're not used to dealing with lots of different things at once. Like our ability to maybe multitask or work in a busy environment, our brains just need time to adjust to the changes. We've had a really quiet time, haven't we? So take your time with it and don't be hard on yourself. Just like we adjusted going into lockdown, we're going to need to adjust coming back out, aren't we?
And that's basically the summary of this podcast episode.
Sorry, have I just taken over?
What I wanted to just say is that if you do a quick Google, you'll see that there's so many things out there. I was surprised by how much had been written about being anxious about coming out of lockdown. So I think for me, it was reassuring to know that I'm not the only one that's feeling like this. But I will say it made me sad because a lot of these things that I was reading, they were written by or aimed at young people, teens and stuff. And I thought it's not surprising that me and sort of, approaching 40 is not super keen on getting out there and jumping back into social life and going clubbing and doing whatever. But just the fact that even young people are feeling it, I just felt really sad for them because they've had such an important part of their upbringing and their lives interrupted by this in a way that, some of us haven't really. I think it's also important to just acknowledge that if you are feeling a bit anxious about coming out of lockdown, that doesn't mean that you don't want to come out of lockdown. It doesn't mean you don't want things to go back to how they used to be, or you don't want to see your friends or do social things. It just means that you're a little bit anxious about it, and that's okay. It's that combination of worries about doing things that you're no longer used to doing, and also whether it's too soon to come out of these restrictions and whether it might have a negative impact on this pandemic again. Even the leaders and the experts are giving us mixed messages. So of course we're anxious. If you're like Tracey and I, for example, and you need to read and evaluate what's actually going on, but everything you read just says completely different things, of course that's going to throw you through the ringer, isn't it?
Exactly. But there's one reassurance I'm finding, Dee, is that my parents have had the vaccine and a lot of my friends are having the vaccine now. And as people have had it and they talk about their experiences in a very honest way, some people have felt like they've had a little bit of a reaction, but touch wood, nothing terrible's happened. I think talking about it and expressing your fears, and if you're really concerned, I'm speaking to my GP on Tuesday about it because I'm really concerned about it and I want to speak to a medical professional. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, find out the facts from someone who's
actually qualified to tell you, basically. Yes,
that's what I'm
not someone on Facebook. Yeah. So if you are concerned medically how you're going to respond to the vaccine, then do contact your GP. And then also, this might be a little bit of a controversial point of view, but there's some things that we don't want to go back to normal, right? Some people.
How much of a waste of time would it feel, Dee, if we just click back into our normal lives after all of this, after all we've been through, after all we've learned? To just
if we didn't
go back to how we were.
Exactly. If we didn't learn anything, if we didn't think, all right, well, we've had to change all of our everything, what did we actually like from that? So For example, a lot more people have the ability now to work from home and they enjoy it at least part of the time. It gives them a few more free hours during the week to spend with family or going to the gym or friends or whatever they want to do. Is that something that you want to take on and keep on? Some of us really enjoy, I say some of us because I'm included, working in our pajamas.
Oh, yes.
I love it. You know, I know some
not having to wear a bra.
That's my next thing. No bra.
No bra.
Some of us really enjoy that. Just having a day of just slumming it and cracking on with work without having to think about our appearance or our hygiene. Not having to put on makeup and all these sort of things. It's important to think about what things you liked. Maybe even in the work life, you've had to adapt things and you're really excited about some of the things that have come about. We've had to progress quite dramatically and quite quickly. For example, I do a lot of event organizing, and now most of them, all of them actually, obviously, all of them are online. And that has been quite nice in the fact that we've got people from all around the world rather than just people in London coming to the event. So that's something I'd be sad to lose. I like the people from South Africa logging in and listening to our events and stuff, you know? So yeah, there's going to be some anxiety about losing some of the advantages and some of the good things that have actually come out of this really dramatic period of time. I was reading in the Independent that a study of 2,000 adults found that the average adult's anxiety and stress levels has increased by almost 50% in lockdown.
Wow.
So that's not surprising when you think of all of the new concerns that we have. Never mind the health concerns. Obviously, we're all worried about getting it. Well, a lot of us are worried about getting it, passing it on to people that we love getting it, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously the worst case scenario, if people do get it, but also all the other concerns that have come about from these lockdown period, right? There's been a lot of job insecurity. Some of us have been made redundant. Some of us have, you know, are insecure about where our next jobs are going to come from.
And having a lot of time to yourself away from distraction leaves you just with your own thoughts, which can increase anxiety. Have I just told what you're going to say? Yeah. Sorry.
No. And then on top of that, if you have kids, that must be a whole other level of concern. Their schooling, their social interactions, how are they coping, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different ways that this pandemic has affected people and therefore has the potential to increase anxiety and stress in every area of your life. But there is a positive that some people have enjoyed removing social shackles.
Social shackles, I like it.
That's a good way to phrase it, social shackles. What exactly are we scared about? What are we anxious about? For some of us, it might be returning immediately to that fast pace, the long commute on the busy train, the busy lunches, the busy cafes, the busy work environments, et cetera, et cetera. Some of us might be afraid of losing that extra freedom we got from working from home. So that freedom of time, we get a couple of extra hours saved from the commute. You save time not having to necessarily get all dressed up and putting on makeup, et cetera, et cetera. We're also worried about having to take up all those social obligations again.
If you don't feel sociably ready to go to a busy cafe, then don't. And if you feel that you need to reintroduce yourself back into society or work a little bit slower, then do that.
Exactly. But then also we're scared of easing the restrictions that might prolong the pandemic. I feel like that's definitely happened last year, where the restrictions have been lifted and we've just gone back to square one or worse. It's just prolonged the pandemic, that we're going to feel like we've got this newfound freedom. And then suddenly, do you remember at one point we could go to pubs for a bit? That was nice. Yeah. But then immediately almost it stopped. So there's the fear of having that sort of yo-yo effect. And again, like I said, for some of us, the thought of being in crowds, and for me now a crowd is like 3 people, is so foreign that it feels really intimidating.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about some of the tips. We've hinted at some. It's not rocket science, but it's just important to remember all of this as we get thrown back into the world again. Tip number 1, acknowledge that the choice is yours. What you were saying.
Yeah. That's a good thing you taught me, Dee. And even if you go somewhere, do you remember you said to me, even if you're in the pub with your friends and you feel that you want to go home, then go. As long as you're not rude and just storm out. Explain, I'm sorry, I need to go now.
And if you think that those friends will have a problem with that, then you do have to think a little bit about whether they're the right friends for you. Obviously, that's very black and white. If someone traveled for 800 hours to come see you, and after 5 minutes, you're like, right, I've had enough of peopling, bye.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, but then, in that case, you need to think about the format of your meetings, right?
Yeah.
Maybe don't meet that person in the pub because it's going to be really exhausting for you emotionally, physically, etc. Maybe you meet them at your house or something. Yes, so acknowledge the choice is yours. Think about what you missed and who you missed during lockdown, and take those back up again and leave the rest. Is there someone, I know a bit of a controversial Machiavellian point of view, but are there people that you just didn't miss at all? You don't miss them. You don't miss seeing them. You haven't bothered to really keep in touch. I mean, maybe those people can just be fizzled out of your life.
Question, isn't it, Dee? That's not one I thought of at all, but I will ask myself that.
It sounds awful, but if you have relationships that you aren't getting anything from, and that are negative or draining or toxic or just meh.
And how have these people behaved as well during lockdown?
If you haven't tried
the values, hasn't it, of people? And
if you haven't tried to keep contact with them, if they haven't tried keeping contact with you, then why continue with the farce, right? And why not give yourself more time for the people that do appreciate you, that you do have really positive relationships with.
And new people that have popped up as well.
Right, exactly.
I don't know how, but I've had new people pop up in my life during lockdown, and old friends that I haven't spoke to in years who did a check-in.
Exactly.
And have become friends again.
Exactly. I've had a few calls with people that I haven't spoken to in ages, and we've only kind of lost contact apart from sort of being Facebook friends, which doesn't count because they've moved away or changed jobs or whatever. And we've been back in touch again, which has been really nice. Do think about what you want to let back in your life and what you're happy to just leave forever. And also, a lot of us have had a lot of time on our own, right? A lot of time to ourselves. And we've enjoyed it to different extents. I fucking love it. I know other people have struggled with it more. But if you've enjoyed it, and if you've acknowledged that you need X amount of time on your own, then make sure you keep it in your schedule.
Yes.
Right?
Like daily meditation or just a daily walk.
If that's a new practice because of lockdown and you've enjoyed it, keep it on. And if you actually need to physically put it in a schedule so it doesn't just get sucked up with social obligations and whatever, then, then so be it. Tip number 2. Baby steps, build up a tolerance.
Yeah.
So this made me laugh because I was thinking about when we were at uni, and I had a friend who, whenever there was a big night planned, they used to build up their drinking tolerance.
Now, when you're telling me this, I'm thinking that's a really weird thing to do, but also what a good idea.
Right?
Why are we not
Because they didn't
this?
like getting completely wasted in an event, not remembering it. So, but they knew that they were going to drink a lot. So they built up their drinking
during
tolerance.
the week, did they?
Yeah, exactly. So
was it you, Dee? Was it a friend?
No comment. During uni, my drinking tolerance was just permanently kept at a high. Similar with a marathon. You wouldn't just go in and run a marathon. You would do training, right? You would build up to it. So maybe don't start your normal life again by going to a gig at Wembley on your first outing. Don't feel that you have to all of a sudden book a meeting with every single one of your friends all in one go.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is that you can feel free to keep social distancing rules for yourself longer than the government has them in place. If you don't feel comfortable giving everyone you see again 3 kisses on each cheek and a cuddle, then don't, just say, look, I'm still being a bit careful. I'm still a bit anxious. I think a lot of people will understand that, won't they?
Yeah. If you want to wear your face mask still, even though you're not obliged to wear it, there should
100%.
be no apologising for your behaviour or how you feel you need to be to protect yourself and loved ones. Do what's right for you.
One of the main reasons why I left my job where I was commuting into town and started working for myself was because of the long commute. And one of the reasons why that got to me was the time it took. But also, I felt like I was constantly fighting something. And I probably was, because I was in a jam-packed train twice a day, several different trains. with hundreds of people breathing and coughing and whatever. So of course I was fighting something every single day. So I imagine that I will still, for the foreseeable future, have a face mask in my handbag at all times. And every time I'm in a place that's crowded, I will totally put that back on. I don't care if it's 4 years from now. But I think that's one of the positive things of the new norm. I like that there's hand sanitizer everywhere I go.
And wearing a mask is to protect others, right? That isn't even to protect you. Your mask and all of the implications of social distancing is to help others out. And it's that mindset that even as an empath, I'm very conscious of others. But that thoughtfulness of, I'm going to wear this mask to protect you. Can you wear one to protect me? It's no longer sociably acceptable now that, and I used to do this, I don't know about you, Dee, but if I had a cold, my manager wouldn't let me off work.
I know.
I had to go in, snotting and sneezing everywhere. It's no longer sociably acceptable, it's said in the papers now, and this will be
to go in and infect everyone. Exactly. But also, more places now have the structure of being able to work from home. So if you were feeling a bit sniffly, if you weren't feeling 100% and you didn't want to make it worse by dragging yourself across the city to your work, you would have the ability to work from home, work from bed for a day. That structure is now available for the most of us, which I think is really interesting and brings us on to tip 3, which is if you're employed by someone else, talk to your boss about keeping the work habits that you liked, even if only part-time. So maybe your boss is not going to want you to be all of you working from home every single day, but maybe you can talk about what days you have to be in the office, or whether you can have one day working from home a week, or whatever you like. Maybe you hate working from home and you just can't wait to be full-time in the office again, and that's fine. But if anything has changed in your work environment, even if you work for yourself, think about what you enjoyed and what you would like to keep on. For example, I work for myself, and I used to have to drag myself into town for meetings with people. And from now on, I'm going to suggest, can we do them on Zoom?
Yeah, and it's acceptable now, and it's an easier way. You'd think working from home would decrease productivity, but it's actually increased it. Large companies now are finding that people working from home has increased their staff's productivity, their staff's creativity. Maybe it is that need for space that we do need. Being in a busy office isn't good for us all the time. And I'm sure a lot of big companies will not go back to having their staff back full time either.
Or in shifts, so it's not so busy and noisy, or just for the team stuff. Who knows? But like I said, have a real think about what you liked from it and how much you want to keep on of it. Tip 4, this is super important, not just for coming out of lockdown, but just for life. Don't compare on social media. So this is what I predict will happen, right? Because we saw it a little bit during the restriction easing. And also when you look at friends' social media in different countries where they have different restrictions, I suspect when we come out of lockdown that there will be the resumption. Is that a word? Resumption?
We'll have it. We'll make it a word. Why not?
The resumption of people posting their holiday pics, their party pics, their clubbing pics, their out with friends pics. And it might be very easy to look at those and think, oh, everyone's just split back into normal life and they're all going out and having fun and doing all these things with all their friends. And here's me sat at home in my pajamas, still a little bit anxious about going out for brunch with 2 friends. So it's really important to just... Tracy's smiling. Is it because you know?
A lot of my friends are already doing this.
Right.
And I'm like, how are you on holiday? And then I realised that it's a repost from 2 years ago.
We all know that social media, it's not how it seems, right? It's not everything on there is real. A lot of it is filtered. A lot of it is tweaked. You don't get the backstory. Like maybe everyone in that picture is absolutely fucking miserable, but they've all just pasted on a smile for that one photo that makes it look like they're having the best time. And that's the picture they post.
It's a bit of a mental inner battle, isn't it? If I want to do that, but I can't do that. And even if I could do that,
I'd be scared of doing it. Yeah.
So what do you want? And then do you want them to stop doing that? Do you wish that they were going through the same as you? And if you wish they were going through the same as you, does that make you a bad person? Or is it just that you want them to understand? Or
exactly.
Are you concerned they're not safe? There's a lot going on in our little brains.
Exactly. We're having a lot of emotions and thoughts, and they're all totally okay. So just take everything you see on social media with a pinch of salt And also feel free to block people not block. That's quite extreme. No, fuck it. Block them if you want, but
snooze them. Just
snooze them if you need
days.
to. You can snooze them for 30 days or you can unfollow them. So you're still friends, but you don't see their posts. If something triggers you, then just try to remove it if you can. So we're going to see loads of celebrities and friends doing things as we come out of lockdown that we are still not ready or comfortable doing. And I just wanted to sort of highlight that that's okay. Not everyone is going to be ready to do the same things at the same time.
Also, just as you're not ready to do what they're doing, don't expect them to follow your path either. So don't be judgmental that just because they're going to the pub and having a good time and you feel it's still not safe, don't try and influence or impact your views on them because everyone's different.
We all have had a very different journey during the last year or so. We're all going to have a very different journey coming out of lockdown. Try to be kind to yourself, but also everyone else. Just try to understand. Maybe you're the one that's ready to do things ahead of your friends, Yeah. Then try to figure out with them what they're ready for. And, maybe they're long after lockdown finishes, they're still not comfortable meeting in public. Well, maybe you meet them in their garden or in their house when that's allowed. So just be kind to everyone. And again, like I said, social media is not real. And this leads on to tip 5. Be honest with how you're feeling and do what's right for you. So like I said, if you want to keep some of the social distancing and the face masks and the hand sanitizers in every pocket in your handbag, then do that. And also the important thing to remember is that you might feel more anxious on a particular day and you might feel better on another day. You might make plans to see a friend at the weekend, but that day comes along and you're like, actually, I don't think I can do this. So just be honest with yourself. Don't push yourself to do things that you don't feel ready for. And tip 6 is thinking about some meditation and coping techniques and visualizations that might help you as you come out from lockdown. And this is where it becomes super important to be aware of empath practices or have an empath friend who can help you, because we are very much the pros, aren't we, of having our coping techniques for being in social situations.
I'm so glad this is on the list today.
This is why it's part of our Empath mini-series, because we have so many and we talk about a lot on our podcast episodes. So feel free to borrow from us. We've got, for example, I think you told me about the cloak.
It was Michelle. Visualization of your kind of protection barriers. So, you may feel some days you need a full suit of armor, depending on who you're dealing with. But sometimes you don't want to be cut off, but you just want to feel like you do have a boundary. You do have a flexible, nice, soft barrier. So a blanket, a cloak, visualizing something that will help you keep your distance. I mean, luckily, I think we'll still have social distancing when we come out of lockdown. So we still have that actual physical thing, but add your visualization to that to try and keep yourself from being drained, because I imagine, in fact I know because it's already starting to happen, that there's a lot of people who aren't empaths or spiritually sensitive who cannot wait to tell you their woes, and they will see you as a light, a beacon, ready to listen, because no one's been listening or they haven't seen anyone for a while.
And they had a lot of woes in the meantime.
They have a lot of woes. And they're going to drain you. And you're going to feel the need as an empath to fix them. And it's going to be tricky to find that barrier and that boundary and that balance between not cutting yourself off completely, but making sure that you're protected. And
there might be times when you're out when you start feeling overwhelmed by the noises and the amount of people. So these visualization techniques of imagining yourself being wrapped up in a cloak, so you're protected against some of it, or bubble wrap is a common one. Imagining yourself wrapped up in bubble wrap so that you have some of the energies and the sounds and the things that are draining you deflected. An actual bubble is the one I use. I quite like imagining myself rolling around in like one of those zorbs. Just taking a moment to ground yourself. If you use different grounding techniques, or imagining a light around you. All of these things really help if you stop and take a moment. And then tip 7 is to acknowledge the difficulties that you're going through, but to focus on the positives. What do you want to do again? What will you be able to do? What do you feel comfortable doing? Who do you want to see? And focus on that. And just make sure you're happy with it. So those are my different tips. One thing that I will say and that I want to end on is that if you're struggling with any kind of anxiety or stress or depression, then please do speak to a loved one. Please do speak to your GP. Please do have a look. There's loads of databases of approved counselors. You're not alone in needing a bit of extra help during this time.
Yeah, definitely. I think the counselling services have been better than ever. There's so much out there that's available. We're all going to need help getting back into society in some empath or not, in some shape or form. It's going to take an adjustment, and it needs to be slow, and we need to just carry on our journey of self-acknowledgement, self-care, self-discovery, protecting ourselves, all of this.
But it's important to remember that alongside this coronavirus pandemic, if you look at those stats that I mentioned in the independent study, about 50% of people suffering more from anxiety and stress, it's also a mental health pandemic, isn't it? And so just like with protecting ourselves against corona, the same thing can be said about your mental health. We need to put up our protection barriers. We need to get as much help as we can. We need to figure out what's going on in there and be kind to ourselves and not push ourselves to do things that we're not ready for.
I'm quite anxious but excited about coming out of lockdown, and I acknowledge those feelings. On my shop, I have one day at a time, and I follow that motto. So don't think about next week, next month. Obviously, we have to put things in our diary, but just take each day as it comes.
Yeah.
And it will be good.
And just be honest with yourself about how you're feeling. Don't force yourself to do things that you know you're going to hate and that might push you back. There's no rush, is there?
No, we've got the rest of our lives, and your brain actually needs this time to get back, wake up, press the on button again. People I'm seeing haven't spoken to anyone outside their family for months, and they can't engage in conversation, and they know they can't, and I can't either. I think the only thing that's kind of kept my brain chugging along is doing these recordings with you. Has kept my brain working. Don't be surprised if, when you start to see your friends again, you find your conversations quite difficult or different as well.
There's just going to be a lot of things that are going to take some getting used to. We've learned so much, and we've come so far, and we've done so much adapting that we've actually shown how super resilient and flexible we are, which is really, really exciting, isn't it? So so if you're feeling anxious about coming out of lockdown, that's absolutely normal. It doesn't mean you don't want to come out of lockdown. It just means that you have some reservations. You're not used to some of the things that we used to do before. And just be open with yourself and with your friends, your loved ones, the people you have to meet up with, your boss, about what you're ready for, what you're not ready for. And speak to a GP if you feel like you've got a lot of stress and anxiety that you're struggling to cope with.
Oh, thanks, Dee.
Well, that's the end of our Empath mini-series. We hope you enjoyed it. We've enjoyed
I've learned so much. Sometimes just for saying it out loud and re-listening to it. It's been a journey, hasn't it? Hope you've enjoyed.
And we've got season 2 of our podcast, which we're super excited about. We're starting with numerology. So that's going to be coming out soon. And we hope you join us to listen to season 2.
Yeah, check it out. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Take you.
Care.
Bye. If you enjoyed that and you want more from us, why don't you head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/We Knew the Moon, and check out some bonus content.
Also, if you want to stay up to date, you can follow us on our Facebook page at we.knew.the.moon. If you could leave us a review on our Facebook page, that would mean a lot.
Our Instagram handle is the same as our Facebook, at we.knew.the.moon. We are on Twitter at We Knew the Moon 1, and we are also on Pinterest. Just search for We Knew the Moon.
Finally, if you want lots more fun, moon info, and all things spiritual, plus our lovely shop, please visit our website, wenewthemoon.co.uk.